From cutting the government to deporting undocumented immigrants to trying to annex Greenland, there's a deluge of announcements and policy changes coming out of the new administration. Special Wall Street Week contributor Larry Summers has strong views about what is most important. Larry, let's talk about one specific aspect of the situation in Ukraine, and that is the request/demand of the U.S. government, led by President Trump, but also with Secretary of Treasury Bessent, for the Ukrainians to give over, essentially, some of the interest in their natural resources, actually, I guess, in repayment for some of what's already been done.
It's almost unbelievable. When I think about the United States, and I'm not alone in this, and I think about the great acts of the United States, I think about the Marshall Plan, when after World War II, we provided the key finance that enabled the rebuilding and reconstruction of Western Europe and was integral to our success in the Cold War. And I think of how different that was than what France and England did after World War I, when they imposed at Versailles punitive terms on Germany that led to resentments and that ultimately set off the Weimar Republic and the steps that led to the Second World War. We were the country of helping, of the Marshall Plan, not of punishing. This is an extraordinary step. What the Trump administration seems to be proposing, and to be fair, we have not seen all the details, is a Versailles-like agreement imposed not on aggressors, but imposed on the victims of aggression. The victims of aggression to whom the United States, in the face of the world, made solemn promises to. Now, I recognize that there is a need for pragmatism. I am not one who believes that it is feasible for the United States to underwrite every Ukrainian aspiration or desire. I believe it is necessary to bring this conflict to a conclusion. But for the policy of the United States to be blaming the victim for the aggression and then taking the destroyed, highly indebted victim and saying that our policy is to lay claim to the very limited assets that it has as some kind of compensation for what we have done, that is beyond Versailles. And so as I look at history, I see that we are making errors beyond those that were made in Versailles, and we are making errors that are beyond those that Neville Chamberlain made, because we're not just appeasing, but actively supporting aggressors. And I worry about the future in a world where that is the approach that the United States has taken.
I'm delighted to welcome now the U.S. Treasury Secretary. He's Mr. Scott Bessent. So, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining us. Ukraine is at the top of everyone's mind right now, and particularly the deal that you were the point person on as you went over to Kyiv to actually first present it. We all watched what happened in the Oval Office. I guess the simple question is, can this deal be saved?
Well, David, the question is which deal, the peace deal or the economic deal, because clearly it's very difficult to do an economic deal with a leader who doesn't want to do a peace deal. And I will tell you, I was sitting 3 away from President Trump or President Zelensky, and this has to be one of the great diplomatic own goals in history.
If Mr. Zelensky called back right now and said, "I'm sorry, I want to put it back together," what would he have to do?
I don't know. Mr. Zelensky and his team were taken out of the Oval, and they kept coming back with that message, and then they left the White House, and it's going to take a lot of repair. And, you know, David, the real tragedy here, maybe things can be repaired with the administration, but I don't know how the American people are going to feel. And more importantly, the economic deal, the meeting today, the real purpose was to show that there was no daylight between the Americans and the Ukrainians. So, you know, President Trump's idea was to show that with the economic deals, to show that we're more intertwined, and that would be a symbol to the Ukrainian people, to Russian leadership, and to the American people. And President Zelensky blew that up today. I'm not sure what he was thinking.
Do you expect to remain the point person on the economic deal?
I expect to be the point person on the economic deal, but ultimately it's going to be up to President Trump whether he thinks that he can continue negotiating with President Zelensky.
What is in it for Ukraine, the economic deal? Why is it in their best interest to sign this deal?
The economic deal is a fantastic deal because if you think the U.S. is willing to co-join its economic interest with Ukraine, and like I said, a very, very strong symbol, potential for very high returns for Ukrainian people. And again, it was meant to be a very strong symbol to Russian leadership that the U.S. and Ukrainian people are more co-joined. And we have economic interest on the ground. Economic security becomes military security. The economy of Ukraine coming out of this, I thought our deal would have really been an accelerant to Ukrainian growth. I mean, you look at Poland next door, and since the Iron Curtain came down, when it came down, Poland and Ukraine had roughly the same size economies. Now Poland, before the war started, Poland's was 4 times larger. So Ukraine has a lot of potential. We'd hope to help unlock it. We'll see whether a deal can be done.
Would it be beneficial to Ukraine, though? I understand why it might benefit the United States. You've heard some people like Larry Summers said to me, this is sort of like Versailles, except that the Germans were the aggressors in World War I. These are the victims. Why should they give up natural resources? What's wrong with that argument?
Well, look, I think Professor Summers should comment on things where he has all the facts. And Versailles was debt. This is equity. We get nothing if the Ukrainian people don't get anything. It's win-win. So there is no debt component here. Many of the European loans, or much of the European aid, has come in the form of debt. Thus far, U.S. has put in grants, and this is not debt. If it were debt, the Ukrainian bonds would not have been going up on the deal. So I think Mr. Summers, Professor Summers, should maybe call me and ask for the details before commenting. Maybe it's a nice media line that it's Versailles, but it's just not the truth.